What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the firewall, specifically the Thursday episode called Ask a CISSP. I'm here with Edgar Vanterpool on the podcast for the first time. Like, with that being said, so I haven't done one of these in a while. The normal cadence is Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion, Thursdays Ask a CISSP, and Fridays everything else, movies, books, and games. Depending on how you're listening to this, so if you're listening to 99.1 FM, you may get this as an episode to itself. Same thing with Channel 10 in the Fairfax, DC area, or as a self-contained episode one of these Thursdays coming up on your podcast platform of choice. We'll hit up all the websites to go by our name, the other side of the firewall.com to pick up the book. So I'm going to have to plug it at the very beginning because I will forget. You get this guide right here. Oh, I messed the camera up. If you are watching on video, there we go. Pull it back down. Come on. There we go. Technology. So if you're watching on video, the guide is in the process of going through all the widgets so you can pick it up wherever books are sold, or you can go directly to the website to pick it up. And I can't wait for people to read it and give me their feedback. So super excited. I have guests in the book, just like Edgar here, who have shared their background experiences for all of you guys to hopefully learn, feel empowered, and break through to the other side of the firewall. So with all that out of the way, Edgar, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Another day in the jungle, and I can pick up my copy of the guide.
I appreciate that. So I'm glad to have you on the show. I think we've crossed paths before in Darridge's CMMC like masterclass, so to speak, where he has people come in and either you're going to be an assessor or you're going to be the ones who are being assessed. You kind of role played and teaches you how CMMC 2.0 works and kind of gets you ready to start thinking about how your business, if you're in the DIB, needs to go about it. So I know we talked during that time, and then we've ran into each other a few more times in doing so. So it's a very small world. And I was like, I got to get you on the show. You obliged me. So this will be, I believe, the first time we've had a BISO, so BISO, on the show. So I definitely want to pick your brain. We talk about them all the time on the podcast, me, Shannon, Chris. However, I've never had one on the show. So just like the first interview on the show was my first time talking to a VCISO, now this is my first time talking to a BISO within the space. So if you could just break down a little bit of who you are, where you're from, and then we'll get into your background and your experience.
Who I am, I'm a human being. I originally started off as an automotive technician, man, and taking that knowledge into cybersecurity weighed heavily on like the success of my career. What I do outside of work, I go back to my original craft. I love fixing cars.
Awesome. Is there a particular brand or type of vehicle that you worked on?
I went to school for Ford, worked at Toyota, but love Chevy.
Oh, wow. Okay. So all the above. No, that's awesome. It's cool that those skills that you picked up are practical, right? Like, I always give it up to mechanics, engineers, just people who use their hands to build things or to fix things, because that'll never go out of style, right? You're always going to need those people around to do those things. But also, it's interesting to see how your mind works, right? Like you're I would assume like a tactile learner, like by putting your hands on it, or it could be a different type of learning, but just to be able to break things down and put them back together, like the tinkerers that we always have on the show, it seems to lend itself well to cybersecurity.
We have to be versatile. We have to be auditory. We have to be kinesthetic, and we have to be visual, because there's going to be a lot of times where we won't be able to touch it. So like, let's say we used to go for training for collision, and at BMW in particular, I don't know if I can say that, they glue their panels and they give you the visual first of gluing a quarter panel. Quarter panel is like the left rear of the car, and they'll tell you how much pressure to put, what rivets to put, what glue to put, and then they'll have you attempt to do a small panel, so you know what can go wrong, how it feels, things like that. So it's a mix. You have to be pivotable.
Got you. No, it's cool. Name drop how you want to. Like, the BMW, if you would like to be a sponsor of this podcast, you could pay me at cars. I will accept that as a cash payment. But no, that's interesting, right? Because a really good friend of mine, his son is a mechanic. I'm not sure which type of vehicle he works on, but like that's what he wanted to go to school for. He was like, college is cool, but I would like to learn the trades. I would like to work on vehicles, because he really enjoyed it, and now he's successfully out there in the world working on cars. And again, that'll never go out of style. If we start working on flying cars or spaceships, you're still going to need mechanics, engineers. Those skills will always apply.
100%. It's funny you said that's how it started off. It was an exit report for high school, and I wanted to build. I had to give a presentation on how I will build a flying car and an eco-friendly car, and I drive the most pollutionist thing in the world. I'm so sad, but it shows you how it evolves and the thinking and how the craft can develop in a particular type of way, and
Gotcha.
how we can take cars. Because if you could trust me, put it like this: if you could trust me with your car and you driving to work every day, 1 to 2 hours of commute, I'm pretty sure you could trust me with a computer.
Absolutely.
That's how I looked at it.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I never really thought about it that way. So yeah, because we depend on it to not only get from point A to point B, but to get there safely, right? Like my kids are in a car, so I do hope that my vehicle and anybody else's vehicle who's riding around near me, has been taken care of or certified or whatever it is to make sure it's roadworthy, right? So no, that's awesome. So that's a good plug. Like if I were you, I'd be using that in some capacity.
Look what you said. Make it roadworthy. And so when it was in collision, it's never back to factory condition. It's crash worthiness condition. So
Mm,
science and verbiage came into play. So inadvertently, I was learning cybersecurity, IT, from the computers inside the car to patching to the maintenance of the vehicles to maintenance routines to actually the verbiage on what you say when you're speaking to like an adjuster or you're speaking to a customer. That comes into play heavily because you have to give these type of presentations to executives. And when you're speaking to an executive, you have to see what matters to them. Speaking to a customer, tying that together, they wouldn't care how much tensile strength is the glue that we're using. They want to know that it's put on straight, the color matches, and everything looks perfectly fine. When speaking with an estimator, they need to know the cost, what needs to be repaired, all adjacent
right.
damage to that panel. And then going back to a mechanic, the mechanic perspective, it's what do we need to fix right now and how much it's going to cost.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That definitely prepared you for what you're doing. Like, so that makes me think. So I've had Jeff Lodick on the show a few times. Like, he's a retired Army veteran. He was my boss when I was in the military, and in joint service. He did some. I would say stint. Sound like he went to jail, but he he worked in selling vehicles for a while, right? Like he really enjoys. Like, if you ever meet Jeff, like he can sell water to a whale, man. Like that guy can sell anything. But he went into it because he wanted to learn the trade and the craft and what have you. But now he does a biz dev for DIB organizations or pretty much anybody who's in the managed service provider space, who's into cybersecurity, who provides services for the military when it comes to IT. So, like, I like how we're able to bring those things into the field
Mhm.
because a lot of people feel as though you have to be born holding a computer, right? It's like when you put a basketball in a crib with your kid, like, oh, they're going to go to the league. Nobody's putting a motherboard in the crib with their kid. Well, maybe, but most people are not putting a motherboard in the crib with their kids, right? Like we all come from different backgrounds to make this thing work. So I think that's awesome. So I don't think we really covered after high school, right? So you decided that you wanted to work in vehicles. You've worked on different types of I keep want to say like frames or platforms. I don't know what the vehicular nomenclature would be because I'm used to the military, right?
Mhm.
You usually say platform or something to that extent. What do you say for a car when it's a specific manufacturer?
So it's just like IT. So I went to Apex Technical for school, and then I went to college. I went to post university after. Then doing it teaches at Apex Technical, they teach you how to fix every brand of vehicle.
Okay,
Basic. I don't even know how to explain it. Just basic foundation, good structure. What to do, the do's and the don'ts. Is just like any other school. It's just hands on, like a trade school.
gotcha. Okay, it makes sense because I know probably for supply chain reasons, a lot of vehicles have similar parts, right? Like it may be somewhat different depending upon intellectual property things of that nature, but for the most part I'm sure that there's a certain set for the length and um I don't even know what you would call it. What is the threading of nuts and bolts and things of that nature
Yeah.
have to be fairly similar.
Yes, there's metrics and a standards. So it's just like a system. Nothing is done the same. It can have the similar parts, the functions be the same, the functionality will be the same, but it's not exactly 100%.
Right.
Because, like you said, intellectual property, something's done differently, something's done more effectively, and people have different insights on what they need to get done or what needs to be done for that particular brand. Because if you have a minivan, you're not going to put a GTR engine inside of a minivan.
Right, right. That makes sense.
It's architect designed just for that.
Right, right. It's I mean, I've driven a couple minivans and they're crazy fast for no apparent reason.
No.
Where are we trying to get? To the
Yeah,
soccer game?
you got. You also got to think. You also got to think. It's just like networking. If the communication isn't wide enough, for example, minivan, you need an engine powerful enough to carry 8 people.
Very true. Yeah,
Network,
it is a heavier load.
you need a big enough bandwidth to cover the company.
I like man, you're seasoned. You're pretty good. Okay, okay. I like where this
So
conversation is going.
part of it, and I could say, I think like continuing education after that, and then all right, you get the basic information. You go into the work field, then you go back to school to take that basic information and the work field information that you learn to compare it to what's in school. Because now you have something comparable, something that you can see, something's tangible,
Right.
understand. And I can say that's what made it kind of easier for me because I
No.
understand what
Yeah.
now the information is. So I'm able to apply that information to real world stuff. But then the hardest thing was going back and realizing, like on the test, for instance, some of those things you'll never do in your life.
Right.
There's specialty people. There's specialty people. There's Linux people. There's Red Hat people. There's
Mhm.
Mac OS people. There's Windows, and then you have a transmission person. Then you have a collision person. Then you have an estimator, and then you have a service advisor. Some of those times, those things never cross.
Right.
So that's what I consider the specialty.
No, that makes sense. And then you definitely make it practical and applicable to this conversation. So I appreciate that. So where does the pivot come into place? Like you're doing your thing, you're progressing through your trade. When do you say okay, or what inspired you to say okay, I want to go into information technology, cybersecurity, things of that nature?
My daughter was about to be born, and I was doing what, 12, 14-hour days at a collision center. And it was like, oh no, this can't work. And I was speaking with a representative, or not even a representative, an employee from Wells Fargo. He came in to get his car repaired. We was talking, and I don't know how it generated. It just was so organic about firewalls. And he said, you have understanding of it. You've been configuring them, and he's like, you ever thought about IT? I said, no. I started looking into it and he started coaching me along as like his car was getting repaired. And this was like in 2017, 2016, 2017.
Okay,
And I just made the jump. I was making a lot of money in collision and went down to $15 an hour chasing the
gotcha.
dream. And I ended up going to a MSP. I thank him to this day, See the Matrix here in North Carolina. And his name was Troy Rice. He gave me my first shot and he taught me from how to utilize my discipline and structure in automotive from disassembling and reassembling a vehicle and applying that into IT. And
Awesome. Yeah, that because there's a lot of applicability there.
yeah,
For sure, especially with vehicles becoming more like computers than ever before, right? So you having that, because in my mind, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like the things you learn on the help desk kind of build towards cybersecurity
yeah,
and towards information technology because you're learning like how does the PC work, how does it communicate, and then what does right look like, what does incorrect look like, and then what does that stack into or build to, as well as customer service, right? Like you're not going to get more customer service type knowledge or know-how than dealing interface directly with the client, whether they be tech savvy or not, right? You're always learning stuff. So I would assume to be very similar in the mechanic field as well. So yeah, you're taking all of this IT adjacent practical skills as well as your soft skills and everything else that we always tell people they need to have when they do try to make that jump because you can be the best technician in the world, but if you can't speak to people, then I mean, you're gonna stop at a certain level of work or of your craft. So what happened or what triggered you to move into a more hybrid? What I assume the position of BISO is, right? You have to understand the business and how the business functions. Those soft skills definitely come into to account because you have to talk to C level as well as whatever is at your tactical or whatever level you would call it. So what caused that shift? Was there a natural progression, or was it triggered by something? Like, again, you're the first BISO I've had on the show.
It was organically me growing in a role. I was a system administrator for aerospace and defense, and like I said, I just soaked everything up left and right, and I just naturally grew into that role. I had a predecessor, Robert King. I have to give him a shout out. While I was a system administrator, he was conditioning me into the DoD world, working with CUI, working with CDI, and he was telling me teaching me the do's and the don'ts, and taking the information that I learned over the years as a network administrator, help desk, automotive, and applying that into the environment. And I would say coaching me along or I don't want to say, yeah, coaching me along into this role because of like how you said it before, communicating with customer service, the front facing, having to explain myself, having to do the paperwork, and then having to know how to do the work behind the scenes.
Yeah, definitely. With that being said, how does that transition take place? Is it just a matter of like how do you build the resume to say, okay, I can now work with not necessarily within, but adjacent to or just underneath the C-suite, right? Like, because I always assume like if you're coming from like $1 trillion company, right? They have the bandwidth or the room to have a CTO and a CISO and a BISO and all the above. But I understand that some companies have to choose one or the other, right? You can only have a BISO or a CISO, depending upon your budget and your appetite. So how do you accumulate those skills to be able to speak the lingo and then press upon the business that you understand? I guess this hybrid of a role.
Yeah. Because to be a business information security officer, first you have to understand the business also. And you have to think, how can I not hinder it? So to answer your question, you have to learn what the business needs are, right? That's business. Information security. All right. You have to learn the information that you're protecting. And then after the information, I'll say with the security portion is that's where that ties over the technical. And then the officer, of course, that encompasses everything. You have to protect, you have to engage, you have to be one with the actual role of customer service and technical. So you have to be front facing and behind the scenes. Speaking towards what I did to prepare for it was I took plenty of courses. I took presentation courses. I took communicational courses of what my audience is needing, and that who, what, when, where, why, and how that they taught us in like first and second grade comes into play
Right.
ever so more in this type of situation because you can't talk technical to an executive. They just, that's not their role. That's not their lane. So when you telling them or doing a presentation, this is how it's going to affect your bottom line. This is your ROI. This is what we need to expect if we was to do this. This is how we can move forward. Give them out 3, 4 options, offensive and defensive approaches. Let me explain on offensive and defensive approaches. Offensive, you can go, hey, if we do these changes in our environment, we could grab these other contracts that can generate more revenue. Now we're giving a purpose. Defensive, we can say, if we do these changes here and implement these cybersecurity effectives, we can save money on this avenue here. And you gauge it upon the situation. That portion right there, the gauging, that comes from just watching and observing senior leadership, a mentor, somebody that can show you the ropes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see it takes a lot of experience, both, the ability to see something or to see someone touch something hot and say, okay, I'm not going to touch that because it's hot, as well as you have to have that experience where you have burnt yourself, and then taking that combination of the both to press forward. So no, I think that's a great summary because I think a lot of people are trying to figure it out, right? Like they understand the technical side of the house, they understand what needs to be done, they've worked their way up the ropes in the different rungs, but they don't really think of the necessarily the bottom line, right? Because when I was enlisted, there are no shareholders, right? There's taxpayers that you're not supposed to waste money, basically. But there's no return on investment necessarily, right? Like you spend X amount of dollars on the system, it's spent. Like there's no one necessarily saying like, okay, how's this going to generate money? How's this going to further develop X or Y? It's all about how do we project
Mhm.
power, right? Like how do we keep people safe? How do we, defend ourselves both domestically and abroad, which is pretty timely right now, right? With all of the stuff that's going down. But what I'm learning now in business is there's always the phrase business needs, or the phrase that's a business decision, right? Where it's like, okay, we have to be compliant, we have to do X, Y, or Z, but we might not necessarily have the appetite or the bandwidth to spend money that's not going to make money, right? Your cost center. So how do you kind of balance that? Like, because I would assume, like, because you understand what's at risk, right? Like, you understand, like, okay, if we don't do X or Y, it could potentially cause harm, but at the same time, you understand that, okay, I can't keep asking for money that's not gonna make money. So how do you kinda navigate that when it comes to, working with the C-suite?
Nothing is neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. Winston Churchill. So
We're going through a master class, people.
So when applying that information, you have to take into consideration and remove the technical perspective where the business may not have, they're just asking for the bare minimum. With us as technicians, we look at it as this is our baby, this is our creation. We want to see it into fruition. You want to be a parent, you want it to grow up to be the best version of itself. But then you have to look at it from a business perspective. This is a single date, there's nothing coming from it. It's just dinner and we go home, go our separate ways. That's it. If you can distinguish between the two of growing up, going through K through 12 into college versus, hey, I'm just meeting you this one time on this path and we go about our life, and be able to transition between the two and understand it. That's the biggest thing. So as a technician that's wanting to get into a BISO, becoming a professional, I don't want to say professional, a master of my practice. Because when you go to the doctor, you never hear them say, I'm a professional doctor. You always hear them say, this is my practice and what I
Right, yeah, exactly.
you just have to practice different algorithms of what works for your particular business. That's why B and B so mean you look at the business first, then you look at the information, then you look at the security, and then you become the officer and you be able to provide and distinguish what is needed. Know your craft, then learn the business perspective of it, learn the business terms, learn the transition, be pivotal in it. Like, yeah, we can't afford this server right now. What we can do is we could put mitigating factors of continuous monitoring, patching every month. Instead of once a month, we could do patching twice a month. Check for 0 days, 24/7. And then until we're able to finance this server, which will be maybe, what, a year, we could weigh out the cost of manpower versus updating the servers. Pick your poison.
No, yeah, there's a lot of logic and reason within the role. So no, that's great description of how it works. So I would ask, because we've had this question on the podcast before. When it comes to the role of CISO, right? There's a lot of pressure right now from both ends, right? Like CISOs are the scapegoat of the C-suite, as well as CISOs are the potential saviors of the technical side, right? Like that person who has to try to play both those roles. It's not really. It's becoming less glamorous over time, right? Just because of all of the necessary regulation that's coming down, and it's becoming very litigious. I've seen a lot of like insurance for CISOs and things of that nature. So it makes you think, like, okay, what comes after CISO? Like, does a CISO eventually grow into a CTO, a COO, or something to that extent? Right? Who knows? However, I have a BISO on the podcast. So, from your perspective, what comes next? What's after the role of BISO? How does it evolve or develop?
It would be it would be a title change, but then instead of managing one sheep, you go from one sheep to 1,000, and you taking the skills that you acquire managing that one sheep to learn your staff, learn your team, trust them at a more advanced level. Because and asking the appropriate questions to get the appropriate answers for what you're looking for to guide the business and what they need.
So, what would a title, whether it be adjacent or the next rung in the ladder, what would that be? What would a CISO, like, if it was a Pokemon, what would it evolve into? I've
Right?
always wanted to use a Pokemon reference on the episode. I got it in there finally.
Okay. So currently, right now, I'm Charmander. If you remember the original episodes, I'm Charmander. I'm learning Ash. I'm learning my skills. I'm still there. I'm looking away. I'm doing my thing, doing what I need to do. When the pressure is on, and how can I say, a higher calling for evolution, that's that 1,000 sheep, then I evolve into Charizard. So I will say you have to take the lumps, have to take the good with the bad. You gotta embrace it. And what I mean by that, You go into the battlefield, you experience your first breach. How do you handle it? Revert back to the playbook. Okay, full line of communication. Let's go to our contact tree. Let's see what we do. How can we mitigate it? Where can we cut it off? So it's just like going to the playoffs. All right, depending on how you do during those situations, it will allow you to evolve into that Charizard in blue.
Okay, okay. I like what you went down. I'm a Squirtle guy. Nope, nobody picks Bulbasaur. And somebody listens to this podcast like, yo, what are they talking about?
I can picture you. I just picture you with the shades on, just like just rock.
Just like that's funny. I'm gonna try to integrate that into the thumbnail somehow. So my question would be, with that being said, is there such thing as a fractional or a V uh, BISO like you see within the CISO lane? Or do those exist in more than just a one off? Like, do you see that within the field?
I haven't seen it yet, but what I've seen is it's the job is being done. It just might be under a different title.
Gotcha.
So I would say from my experience and what I've seen, it's still, I wouldn't say it's new, but it's not as allocated and produced out there. So you may have an information system or if ISSM information system security manager or security
Mhm.
manager or security director that under his title is those presentations, facing the board, communicating to board members, communicating to the actual legal, the transition, the gateway between being that gatekeeper.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I can definitely see it being, especially within when you talk about the defense industrial base, right? Because you're not going to see a lot of. Well, I take that back. Like I have seen a couple titles where I've seen BISO, but usually it's those big B or $1 trillion companies that have those, right? Like not your mom and pops or your brand new members of the DIB. So that does make sense because you will have an ISO or an ISM or something to that extent that would cover down on those things. So, with that being said, I'm not big into preaching that you have to go a certain way, right? Like if you read the guide or you talk to people, or if you listen to the interviews I had with people, like people come into this field from every type of career you can think of, with every type of educational background or the experience, right? So I always say experience is paramount. If you were to try to guide someone who's thinking about like that might be
Mm-hmm.
their role that they're looking to eventually land on, what experiences, like, first and foremost, but then aside from that, what certifications or education should they be trying to obtain in general terms, right? There's no such, like, to my knowledge, there's no BISO degree, right? So what would be some things that they would need to kind of head in that direction?
I can tell you what I did. I studied everything underneath the sun from CISM, CISA, CRISC, CISSP, and business and communication. So it wasn't to become a BISO. It was basically to be more efficient at what I do. So depending on whatever path you're traveling, I never really put a destination there. It was always the path that always got my blood boiling.
Gotcha.
If somebody's looking for a CISO position or a BISO position, learn everything with business, learn everything about your particular field, your particular craft, and then how it's going to work for your particular business. Because it may not even be that BISO title. You may still be a manager and still have that responsibility.
No, that makes sense, and it really is in this case. I guess it's the journey over the destination, right? Because of your experience as well as your willingness to take on opportunities as they came along, kind of led you into your current role, your current position. Um, because I think a lot of people get stuck on, I want to be a CTO, I want to be a CISO, and they build programs around this, right? So that doesn't help things either when it comes to particular roles. Like it's like, okay, I want to be this role, and I found a degree that matches it. It doesn't necessarily, like there's a lot of people who have degrees and things that they will never do, right? But they've have that acumen, or they've obtained that experience, and then they're able to make it more applicable or adaptable. So that does make sense. So no, thank you for sharing that insight. And it's necessarily par for the course because everybody I have on here is a amazing individual, right? Like somebody I look up to or somebody I'm trying to glean information from. Because selfishly, a lot of these questions I ask for myself, and it just so happens to benefit the audience as well. So I'm not going to say there's no, it's not a dime a dozen, right? I'm not going to say like, oh, everybody has their own particular path or skills or what have you, because there's a lot of people who never make it in, unfortunately, no matter their background or what they've tried. If you were to kind of drop some nuggets or some keys to just not necessarily your role, but just certain things that you saw or you did to break into cybersecurity. What would those be? It could just be one nugget, or it could be you could be like DJ Khaled. You just keep dropping keys on us. It's up to you.
Fail forward when listening to somebody's experience or explanation, not complaining, explanation of a scenario. Always ask those questions: who, what, when, why, how. Because if you ask that, you will have all the variables to the equation and you'll be able to make an educated decision. So always ask that. That'll be the golden nugget right there. Ask who, what, when, why, how. And that should provide you all the variables to the actual situation or problem that needs to be solved.
No, awesome. And I think that's also empowering, right? There's a lot of people who don't they feel kind of intimidated to ask those questions. So less so more than ever, right? Like there was a time like I'm an '80s kid. There's a time where somebody told you to do something, you did it. There's a grown up talking, you do it. Uh, and then as time has kind of evolved, even when I was in the military, you start to have airmen that would ask you the why.
Mhm.
And for some of us, it would be a opportunity to break it down. Like, okay, this is why we do this. This is a mentoring moment. But for others, it was kind of uncomfortable because they weren't used to being challenged in that way. So I think that made the difference between a not necessarily, I don't want to say bad leader, but an okay leader or a good leader. If you had the time to explain, could you build that rapport with your troop versus like I said to do it. Because sometimes that has to happen, right? Like things have to move quick, things are happening. But if you have opportunity, then you should take it. So no, that's good that you're saying ask those questions as well as learn either vicariously or through experience or both, right? Fail forward. Don't let us necessarily a setback set you back, right? It's a learning experience when it does happen. So no, that awesome. So to make a pivot, right? Well, we have your background, your experience, keys to the kingdom to breaking in. But when I talk to people on the show, I always like to land on what they do outside of work, right? And sometimes it's still work. Like for me, you ask me what I do outside of work, it's either trying to figure out how to start up a book tour or get the book through a different distribution channel or X, Y, and Z, right? That's my current project is getting the guide off the ground. What do you do outside of work, right? Like to hopefully unwind from the daily life of a BISO.
It goes back to cars, man. My first love. Love building cars, problem solving, and just problem solving in the aspect of it doesn't have to be a problem. How can I help somebody? So I'll volunteer, like helping my neighbors with something or helping out the community, cleaning up the park, going back to the physical stuff. Cars, volunteering, really video games also, building PCs, helping my nephew out, just dealing with being regular.
Right. No, I got that. So then two questions
Yeah.
come to mind. Question number one, what have you either built or restored when it comes to a vehicle
Mhm.
that, it was kind of like a passion project? And then thing two, what kind of games do you play?
Number one, 1989 Chevy Silverado 383 stroker, 700 R4 transmission, blue clutch racing. Rear end will be 342 gear ratio. So with the gear,
Yeah, you see my eyes glaze over. I'm just like, that sounds cool.
real
I
car
don't know what any of that means.
car guys. So the gear ratio lets you know how fast you can take off. So the lower the gear, 308 highway gear, that means you could drive higher speeds. 342 gives it a little bit more little bit more pep to take off during the line, give you a little bit more torque.
Okay.
700 R is the brand of transmission. Blue clutch racing, or basically a couple stages above factory, so you could take
Gotcha.
horsepower. These from like I think it was like the 98s and down. They made like a 350 cubic inch size. I had mine bored out to a 383, so it's a stroker motor. Crankshaft, bigger crank, longer piston arms, longer crank stroke. That's what gives it that the actual longer stroke, make it a stroke. What was the second question again?
So before we go to the second question,
Okay.
well, I never got so my first car was a 95 Dodge Neon, a 5 speed. I learned how to drive a stick because that's all I could afford was to buy that car that was a stick.
They were like, man, I was back then though. They were
So my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, um, taught me how to drive it. And then ever since then, I've loved driving a stick. Not necessarily here where I'm currently at because there's just not enough space, right? So it's kind of a pain. Yeah. But I say all that to say, like, so after joining the military, I sold that car. I got a new car. I think my first vehicle when I was in the military was a Chevy Cavalier. They don't even make those anymore, right? But everybody kept telling me to make it a sleeper car, like because all the younger airmen were into racing and modifying the vehicles. I was like, man, I just need to get to point A to point B.
No, but you got to get there fast.
I was like, nah, not for me. But that always came to mind because I had a friend who was really into vehicles, Sean Wallmeyer, if he's listening to this, and he always had like something nice, something new. He's a single airman. He's just, you know what I mean? Like he may necessarily be able to afford the insurance or the gas, but he's got it. You know, when we were younger. So question number two was, what type of games do you play?
PC games, console games. Currently, right now, we're doing Sons of the Forest for PC.
Okay.
And then for PS5, I have a love-hate relationship with Black Myth Wukong.
Oh man. So I haven't gotten it yet. I'm cheap, right? I'm like, it's gonna go on sale. I'm gonna pick it up because I'm not gonna finish it. I don't like to be frustrated with my games. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to really play that one because I like the mythology as well as I want to finally try to settle into one. But every time I watch a video, I'm just like, I ain't got it in me.
Yo, the first playthrough, because I did 7. The first playthrough took me 90 hours.
Okay. You definitely get your money's worth.
Yeah, oh yeah, yes it does. It forces you to come back and keep playing the game because you have to unlock like all the chambers of Wukong to really get the full essence of it. Then they don't give you the full essence. It's only like 2 minutes long. They robbed us of that one, so you don't walk around as Wukong the whole way.
Oh,
So,
okay, got you.
but it's challenging and it gets your mind off of the rest of the world. So I looked at it as if I could beat this game, which has no difficulty level, it's just hard.
Right. Yeah, that is the difficulty level. Very difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult all the way around. Nothing outside can no. That's easy. There's no problems. We're good. We make it happen. I go home. I've raised the bar difficulty with Black Myth. Go back out into the world. Champion. We make it happen.
Got you. Got you. So let's go back to Sons of the Forest. So you said you're playing that. So I've not played it myself. I think I've watched a couple of videos of it. So that's one of those survival crafting games, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh man, like, you love punishment. Why do you love to punish yourself?
I'm addicted, man. I don't know. It's raising that bar. Like when we lifting weights, right? We go
Mhm.
all the way into failure to prepare ourselves out in the world. The worst feeling, and then comparing it into our day to day, the worst feeling is you go to work and nothing's on in the server room. And you're like, and your eyes glaze over, like how you said, oh no, Wukong beat me up yesterday. Nothing can top that. I'm still, let's figure this out. They get you,
Right.
round you right back. All right, did we have a power outage? Do we need to cycle it? Is the APC up and running? And you start going through it. That's what it does for me. It just resets the clock. Eric Doughton once told me it's called polishing your spoon with neurodivergency. So I go back and I polish the spoon. I work my craft, I work my I wouldn't say weapon, but my actual tool or extremity to where when I actually do need to use it, it's ready sharp. I'm good. I'm ready polishing my craft.
There you go. Okay. That's definitely an interesting perspective on it. So before I let you go,
Mhm.
any upcoming initiatives, anything you like to plug before we go through the rigmarole where I can tell people where to find you? Like, is there anything coming up that you're like, hey, this is something dope that either you're doing, that your company's doing, or maybe somebody else is doing?
Currently, right now, I'm just in the winds, man. I'm just going on
Gotcha.
emotions.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Like when you do have the time, right? To because you never know what you'll find when you're out and about. So no, I hear you on that one. So where can people find you? Like if someone wants to either get in contact with you for your services or mentorship or what have you, how can they reach you?
They could either reach me via LinkedIn, of which we can provide,
Yeah, I'll have it in the comments.
or they can reach out to me at edgar.vanterpool@compliancy.com.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate getting you on, man. Like it's the first time we've had, such a long conversation, but to get your background and again to talk about a role that has not come on the show yet, right? Like I don't know many BISOs in general, and again, you're the first one on the show, and it is a title that it's not a unicorn, but it's not as highly adopted. Like you're starting to see a lot of pure technical roles or pure business roles, but it's that hybrid that fascinates me. So to have somebody on here to kind of break it down, what it means, how it works, and then to share that with the audience, I think that's awesome.
It's funny you said that. Unicorn. I had a recruiter one time called it that because you have to be the technical, you have to be the business, and you have to be the logical portion of it also.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. And it's a lot. I can see that being just challenging to find someone with that type of acumen, right? Or wants to learn that because a lot of people like to stay in their lane, right? There's a lot of comfort in picking one or the other, but to do both successfully, hats off to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll probably have to do this again sometime in the near future, right? Like if you have any initiatives that come up, or it just to chat it up. I need to get more people back, so I'm going to start shooting out those emails and what have you. But definitely continue to check out the show. Again, Monday, Tuesday our topics, Wednesday discussion, Thursdays Ask a CISSP just like this, and then Fridays everything else, movies, books, games, all that cool stuff. Definitely continue to check us out in all the places you find us by our name. Definitely hit up the website, theothersideofthefirewall.com, so you can check out the podcast, all the platforms we're on, and most importantly, right now, to buy the book. So you can pre-order it. It drops July 8th. It's called The Other Side of the Firewall, right? 77 pages of pure business with 27 different guests I interviewed and talked to. And then you can also hit up the ramcyber.io, take you to the same place, but that's where you're kind of anchored our business. Hit me up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me pretty much everywhere, but LinkedIn is where I'm most responsive. Stay safe, stay secure.